We are one day away from the first pitch for Tennessee baseball tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, Arlington, Texas, Texas Tech. I'm going to talk about the roster reveals that was finally released last night and getting you ready for tomorrow night right after this intro. Happy Thursday night, Frank Rock, House of Orange Sports Channel coming at you. Thank you for tuning in with me. Before I get into anything, like always, make sure you like, share, subscribe, get this thing out there. Tomorrow night, right after the ball game, this thing's going live for the first time. Tried to amp it up here a little bit behind me, still work in progress right now, but getting a little more color on the wall as we go right now. But like I said, join me right after tomorrow night. I'm guessing it'll be closer to 11 o'clock or so with baseball, depending on, I guess, how fast the game goes or anything. So we'll see how it goes. I may be talking to myself for a bit tomorrow night, but I've got to test the waters and go from there. Like I said, this channel's game is going to be baseball. I'm covering basketball. I'm covering football too. My main goal out of this channel, and we'll see where it takes me, is to cover baseball and cover it well. But last night, the roster finally came out. I've talked about it for weeks on here about how there's been no roster on utsports.com. It was finally unveiled last night. And, it just added the freshmen, added the junior college guys, but there was one glaring omission on there. And I've kind of hinted at it for a bit, and that's Zane Denton. He is not listed on the roster, and it's been reported that he was really not with the team. Sounds like he's been in school. And Tony Vitello talked about earlier on in their intro press conference about how Denton is in a good place right now. I don't foresee, based on what's been reported before, nor him not being on the roster, I don't foresee him playing this year. I don't foresee him playing again. And I've seen it said that maybe he plays next year. Maybe that's the case. But for a guy who was really wanting to go pro after last year and it didn't work out, I don't know. Maybe he gets that itch. Maybe he gets playing. He's like, hey, I want one more run at this, which would be welcome because Tennessee's going to lose a lot of guys after this coming year in the lineup. They're going to lose at least 3/4 of their infielders, and they're going to lose probably at least 2/3 of their outfielders. So there's going to be some opportunity there. There would have been opportunity if he were playing, obviously, but there'll be opportunity there next year for him to step right back into third base with Billy Amick, as he'll be gone after this year to the draft. Christian Moore will be gone. Blake Burke will be gone. And just look at the roster. Nothing stands out on it, really. It's, you've got your freshmen. I talked about it last night when I released the video talking about the size of some of the pitchers like Wyatt Evans and Marcus Phillips. About Evans 6'6", 260, Phillips 6'4", 250. And I thought that's two big dudes coming in. And just kind of looking at some of these weights, of course, you've got Christian Moore. As you've always seen Christian Moore, he looks like a stocky dude. So 216 for him. You got Alex Perry coming in from junior college. He's an infielder. That was one Tony Vitello talked about yesterday about he's had some lower injuries, but he's 6'4", 206, can play some middle infield. Cannon Peebles, about 5'11", 194. Bradkey Lowry, who looks like will be the second baseman, 5'8", 171. That's a couple things that stood out to me. Dylan Dreiling, around 200. Cal Stark, around 200 pounds. Billy Amick, 6'1", 217. So that's that's a pretty muscular dude. The one I was curious, Reese Chapman, 6'1", 212. JJ Garcia, 6'6", 209. Robin Villeneuve, this is the guy they've talked about, and Vitello kind of joked that people's been sneaking in watching practice. But I think this is going to be a guy that's going to be hard to keep out of the lineup a lot of days. Outfielder, first baseman. He is a right-handed hitter, left-handed thrower. So 6'1", 214, and it was reported last week he had a bomb about 250. Look at some other guys. You got Colby Backus, 6'4", 223. Kavaris Tears, 6', 200. Dean Curley, 6'3", 212. And that's a freshman infielder out of California. Lots expected. Or, there was some expectations on him, Ariel Antigua coming in. And Vitello says Curley, he may be ready weekend, but I don't think it'll be a case. We may not see him, though. Blake Burke is 6'3", 236 right now. That's a good size dude. Good size guy swinging that bat over there. A guy I'm curious to see as he moves forward, Stone Lawless, freshman catcher out of Alabama, 6'2", 225. Really nothing else that stands out roster-wise. I mean, like I said, Marcus Phillips and then Hunter Sloop, redshirt freshman pitcher, 6'7", 231. It's a big guy out of P27 Academy in Lexington, South Carolina. Played in Concord. So at P27, when I started hearing about it a little bit when I lived in West Columbia last year. So they're producing some ball players up there. So, some other guys who could factor in. I still think the lineup, based on it, from what we saw in the Pizza Series last weekend, at least what I saw in the Friday night lineup, I don't know if it'll be exact, but I think you're going to see Dylan Dreiling leading off. They had Blake Burke second, Billy Amick third. It was Dalton Bargo was hitting fourth. Now, I'm curious to see on that because Tony Vitello talked about it with the middle infield. I think you're going to see Christian Moore at shortstop. Lowry, who I talked about a little bit earlier, at second. But he said they've worked Hunter Inslee at second, and they've worked Dalton Bargo at second. They're trying to get a lot of different matchups. They've said Christian Moore, Blake Burke have worked in the outfield. So there's some guys that have some versatility there. Could you go with, let's say if Hunter Inslee moves into second, do you possibly slide Dreiling or Tears over to center and Reese Chapman in? Or could Chapman go to center? Where do they go? Or Robin Villeneuve go to left the way they've been working? I think they have a bunch of fascinating lineup options ahead of them. That middle infield, Christian Moore, Brad Key Lowry, that seems to be, and Vitello pretty much confirmed that that's going to be the two guys there. Billy Amick third, Blake Burke first, and they asked Tony Vitello about what the expectations are of Blake Burke, and he said a lot. So he's a fun guy, works real hard, so they're expecting a lot out of him this year. I'm expecting a lot out of Blake Burke as well. People were hard on him in conference because his conference average was down last year. But, man, I'm telling you, Blake Burke had two of the biggest hits of the year last year. He had the single against Clemson that prolonged that game, allowed Zane Denton's heroics. He had the bomb that was crushed at Southern Mississippi, and I really think it put the life into that team, and they rolled the rest of that series, which propelled them to Omaha. I got a lot of faith in him this year as well, especially – I don't know that he had the protection last year like he's going to have this year, especially if they hit him in the two-hole and they got Billy Amick behind him. You got possibly Cannon Peebles in that four-hole and Christian Moore. You can't pitch around Blake Burke. I mean, you can try it, and, he's going to probably see a heavy dose of all-speed stuff, but how has he responded to that going in? They've worked on it. But if they go with that lineup of Dreiling, Burke, Billy Amick third, they had the DH. I've got to think that if Cannon Peebles doesn't start at catcher tomorrow night, he'll DH. I don't think you can keep that bat out of the lineup. Christian Moore fifth. I'm trying to think, I think it was Hunter Inslee. And then you had, who else? You had Tears. You had Lowry, not Loki. I'm not talking about Marvel here. And then there's one more. I guess you had Bargo. You have, I'm forgetting somebody off the top of my head. Oh, Cal Stark. So I think Cal will be eighth hitter, Lowry ninth. That's what I expect tomorrow night with Tears and right, Inslee in center, Dreiling in left. I think that's the lineup you're going to see. That's a pretty strong lineup. And then you could probably at any point see maybe a Robin Villeneuve. We'll see how that game goes. And I'm going to preview the series. I'm going to record here in just a few minutes. I'm going to record a preview for the weekend. And so we'll go from there. I'm excited about tomorrow night. A.J. Russell takes the mound tomorrow night. Drew Beam goes Saturday. And Vitello said there's 4 or 5 guys in the mix for Sunday. So we'll see how that goes. I think there's a possibility it could be Xander Sechrist, maybe an A.J. Causey. I don't expect it to be anybody. I don't know. I see it possibly as an opener, and then a lot of guys getting some action on Sunday. But again, this thing's rocking and roll, man. Can't not wait for tomorrow night. Cannot wait for the live show afterwards. Hopefully, we'll come at it with some good news to kick that off. But as always, make sure you like, share, subscribe. My name's Frank Rock, House of Orange Sports Channel. Enjoy your Thursday, and as always, go Vols.